Well, joining me now to discuss this is Talk TV contributor and lawyer Paula Rowan-Adrian, the author and journalist Paul Mason, and Talk TV international editor Isabel Oakeshott. OK, right, well, I've got Paul and Paula, and I know where you're both going to come at me from. Paul, look, I was surprised it blew up this big, if I'm honest with you, because really the point I was making was it's for charity, this bet, but are you going to put your money where your mouth is? And I can see the way it's played out, obviously, very differently to how it felt in the room at the time. What was your view of this?
Well, like you, I'm against the Rwanda plan. I don't think it'll work. I think it's unfair. I think it's probably illegal in international law, and it costs a lot of money. But if I was in favour of it, I would try and present it to the public in a little bit more sober way. I thought it trivialised it, because it may be that Rishi Sunak doesn't know this, but there were some migrants put on a plane in June 2022, refugees, to go to Rwanda, stopped by the courts. They were dragged onto that plane and chained to the floor. And I accept that deportations have to happen. In a fair migration system, some people have to be deported. But when we do that on all our behalves, we've got to maintain the idea to the rest of the world that we're humane and we care about those people, even if they fail to...
Well, you said you found it morally...
I did.
Rebels or whatever you said.
I said it was morally vacuous.
Right, and a lot of people said similar sentiments. I think there's a YouGov poll says 72% of Britain think it was unacceptable for Sunak to accept my bet. But I haven't seen much reference to the fact that proceeds are going to a refugee charity.
People may have missed that. It was a newsmaking interview. Let's accept that. The point is, first, it's a grand. You know, I was in my local Tesco just now and watching, young mums looking at whether or not they can afford what's on the shelves. A grand to such people sounds like a lot, even in Northallerton and Richmond. I'm not sure how many Rishi's constituents would have found that very tasteful. But then... they
all know he's stinking rich. I called him stinking rich last time I interviewed him.
But the issue then is, let's not trivialise the fate of a lot of people. A lot of Tory MPs, not just Mr Sunak, often say, we can't wait to see the planes take off. When I hear them say that, I think, what about the people in the planes? They've got, as a journalist, I've been to Morocco, interviewed people on wastelands, people from Niger, and said to them, look, when you get here, you're going to risk dying to get here. There'll be a lot of racism when you get here, and you'll be poor. Why are you doing it? And they say, come to Niger. And you'll find out. I.e., the idea that the deterrent effect is going to stop them coming.
Well, I don't think it'll be a deterrent effect. I mean, Paul, I'll bring you in here. I just don't think it is. I don't think it works on any level. They've already admitted, the government, pretty much, that even if they do get it through Parliament and get these people onto planes, we're only talking about a couple of hundred people at vast expense, maybe £300-400 million to the British taxpayer. It makes no commercial, economic sense whatsoever. But my biggest problem with it is I think we should be a country which can deal with illegal immigration properly, with a proper policy, and the far bigger problem at the moment of a soaring legal immigration issue, which is exploding our entire population. But also we should be a country which can take asylum seekers who warrant coming in as asylum seekers. And if we send people to Rwanda, and even if they fulfil the criteria for entry as asylum seeker, we don't let them come back, what have we become as a country?
Absolutely. And I think I just want to be able to answer your question in terms of you being surprised at the reaction to this bet. I'm disappointed that you're surprised. I'm not surprised. It was crass, it was crude. You were playing with people's lives.
No, I wasn't. That's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous thing to say.
People have died.
I wasn't playing.
In an attempt to come to this
I'm actually
country.
Trying to stop those people's lives being played with.
But you played.
No,
no.
What I was doing,
a crude
what I was doing, Paula.
It was two wealthy men.
What's the wealth got to do with it?
Suggested that let's just put our hands in our back pockets and pull out £1,000
to a refugee charity. Finish the sentence.
But we lost the refugee charity.
Well, you shouldn't use it.
Let me explain why we lost the refugee charity.
It seems to me your solution is the refugee charity shouldn't get £1,000.
No, because Rishi has already spent £240 million of the British taxpayers' money on this failed event. Well, he didn't say, to be fair, in the interview where the £1,000 was coming from.
It seemed to me, did you watch the interview? Did you see the whole debate about Rwanda?
I didn't.
So the idea that I'm playing with people's lives when I was actively trying to stop the British Prime Minister from going through with a policy which I think is playing with people's lives, I find that offensive.
Well,
I can tell you.
What's happened is, Piers, is that you're a slick interrogator. And what you
No, I'm a journalist.
And what you did was you led
used
Rishi
a tactic.
down.
I used a tactic.
You led Rishi onto that
I
ice
asked
rink,
him a question.
and he was like, it was reminiscent of Bambi on ice skates, wasn't it? It was just a car crash.
Right.
And how he can really contain himself today is
by the
beyond
way,
me. He must be cringing.
I did.
So yes, it
I
was
did
a
what
joke. Maybe
hang
not
on.
to you, but clearly
Let
to
me
Rishi.
get a word in. I did what people do, including many of his constituents, up and down the country all the time, right? They have an argument, they reach a place where they're not agreeing, and they go, I'll bet you can't get this to work, right? I didn't mean it as any insult to people. I was trying to stop people being, in my view, mistreated by this country, right? Now, the surprise to me was only that the Prime Minister accepted the bet. Now, that may have been a misjudgment on his part. He was probably calculating in the moment, you know what, if I don't, it looks like I don't believe in my policy. Damned if I do, damned if I don't. And maybe that was a sharp moment by me to flush that out, that hesitation by him. But I do think, Paul, I do think some of the reaction has been ridiculous.
Well, I haven't seen all the reaction, but what I would say is I don't share your criticism of you, Piers. You know, as a journalist, when one makes a news-making interview, you want to make the headlines.
Yeah.
You spent a long time with him. I watched the whole interview. It was a long time. And what was clear to me was that the Prime Minister was in many ways accepting your premises at every point in the argument. And that as a human being, let alone journalist, when you find someone doing that, you do start to wonder, should this guy be running the country? And let's see how far he'll go. I've done that in interviews with people where I felt that really they're out of their depth. Now, I don't want to be unfair to the Prime Minister because any live interview with a senior journalist is a tough thing. But in the end, I just think he's out of touch. And the out of touch, I have no problem with you offering him to bet £1,000 for a refugee charity. But what I do have is the idea that he found that sort of funny enough to sort of think, oh, I can do this.
Well, I think you flummoxed him, actually. I mean, let's be fair, I think you flummoxed him in the moment. He didn't really know what to do. And people criticised and say what he should do. He's only been Prime Minister a year.
He should have asserted his authority.
Of course,
because when he's across
every
the table,
Prime Minister will tell you, and I'm sure you've had conversations with them, that they are at their best the day after they lose their jobs, right? They get fully trained, properly experienced, and then they get fired.